Hey everyone. Today I just want to talk about one of the most fun things I worked on back when I was a software engineer at Google, and one of the projects I'm most proud of, and also probably gets seen by and used by the most people per day, unless I wrote some internal thing I forgot about that, I don't know, runs on a million computers or something. But I'm really proud of this one. So, as you can probably guess by the thumbnail and title, it was smooth live chat. So let's bring up just a random stream on YouTube Live just to pick something. And over on the right side, you can see every time a new message comes in, it scrolls up ever so gently. And I did that. And you might think, did you just set the bool, scroll equals true or something like that? But no, it was way harder than that. And so that's really what I wanted to talk about is all of the blood, sweat, and tears that went into scrolling a stupid message slightly slowly up the screen, and how hard it was, and how hard it is in this particular product. So you would think, if you're somewhat familiar with web development, you have your container that holds all of your chat messages, and you just put the message below it, right? Easy. And then you scroll it up, and it's like, yeah, there you go. And if it was that easy, everybody would do it, but everyone doesn't do it. So the problems you run into are, if you want to put the chat message at the bottom, then you need your container to not be anchored, or you need all of the contents of your container to not be anchored to the bottom. But they are in this particular case, because what we care about is making sure that our messages line up at the bottom. So if you just stick your message in, then it's just going to instantly move all of them up. And so you have to come up with an offset. So you think, oh, okay, well, I'll just stick it below and then, scroll it. Maybe that'll work, but not so fast. So there's another trap. You don't know the height of the messages. So let's watch a couple messages scroll by. You can see some of them have 1, 2, 3 lines. Sometimes weird stuff happens. They'll have emoji in them or something like that. Some of the messages now are really big. They're like rich content messages. And you don't know how high the message is going to be. So you need to insert the message somewhere hidden in the DOM. I don't remember what I did. I think either it goes into a document fragment or it goes into some hidden place that's some hidden place that's just off screen. But you need to know how tall the message is. So once you know how tall it is, then you can stick it on the bottom, and then you can set CSS property of YA transition or whatever, and you can set the delay and say, okay, go ahead and scroll when you're ready. So that's good. If you were building some kind of really basic product that just scrolled messages, didn't do anything else, then that would be enough. Like if you're building a ticker, all you have to do is insert something, change your offset. In this case, we measure the total height of the container and include this particular message's height, and then offset it a little bit. And so if you're doing something like that, that's enough. But YouTube chat is so much more complicated. So we have a couple of different states here that you have to care about. I don't have a good example. It would take too long to do, but a chat is empty to start with. So when a streamer first starts a stream, there's nothing here, and so messages start showing up. And the way that I animated them, initially I worked on a steady state thing like this, where it was just full of messages and it was scrolling all the time. And then I went to an empty chat, and the first message scrolled up. The first message showed up, and it went, I think it instantly appeared at the top, then it teleported to the bottom, and then it scrolled up smoothly, I would add. And then it just kept doing that. And the messages kept bouncing up and bouncing less and less until the chat was exactly filled the chat viewport. And then they started being smooth. And I was like, oh, yeah, well, crap. So you have to care about the case of what if the chat is partially full. And so then you have to calculate the overall height of everything, make sure that it's pinned to the bottom, and it's pinned to the bottom even when you insert the new message and you scroll it up. Okay, that's good. So you're done, right? Haha, no, you're not. So YouTube has another special mode. If you use live very much, if you scroll back in the chat, it freezes. See, we're frozen here. We have this little down arrow. And so this is so that people can read scroll back. Like they're like, oh, what was that message? That was interesting. And chat will not move while you're doing this. New messages are coming in to your client and they're getting stored. And it's also discarding old ones, but they won't move until you get to the bottom. And so that means, okay, stop animating, right? That's easy enough. But the problem is the way that we detect this is if the position of your scroll container touches the bottom, that counts as, okay, now we're out of that mode. And so you might think like, well, why does that matter? And it's because we now have two different, well, really sort of three different parties scrolling this container and all fighting for control. So you can scroll it. The animation can cause it to scroll. And also the thing that you click, if you want to reset it, can also scroll it. And so all those are unaware of each other until you program them to be aware of each other. And they're all fighting for control of the container. And so that leads to a whole bunch of different modes that can be really hard to untangle. I mean, really, you have like kind of 8 modes. So you have to make sure that you stop animating when someone's reading scroll back. That's easy enough because you stop animating stuff. But also when you scroll to the bottom, you have to make sure that it resumes animating and you measure the height of everything and you get it correct. So there. So now we're done, right? No, we're still not done. So the other problem, I don't have a good way to show it here, is there's two, I call them regimes for the chat. So if messages are coming in below 1 per second, 2 per second, something like that. I can't remember what the threshold was that we set. This was a few years ago. If they're coming in slowly, we do the animation. But if they came in fast, you won't get to see it here, but the way that it looked was just sort of a continuously scrolling C. And it was really hard to follow. On some screens with low frame rates, it was a really big problem. It was just scrolling all the time. And there's no motion blur on computers. So really it's like a bunch of pixel stepping going up, and it was really hard to follow. So we had to implement a check that said, are the messages coming in too fast right now? If they are, go back to the like stepping mode where messages just sort of teleport in at the bottom and the chat jumps up by exactly 1 message of height. And then I had to program the transitions. So I think we check every 15 seconds. I think that's the interval when chat messages come in. And every 15 seconds, it would say, has the rate changed enough? And if it's slowed down, go back to smooth scrolling. If it's sped up past a certain threshold, go back to stuttering. And that way it won't do it in between messages. Like you can imagine messages come in a little too fast and a little too slow, and it keeps changing what it's doing, and that would look awful. So it needs to stay steady. So there. So now you're done, right? Haha. No, this is Google. We do everything at scale, and we do everything with experiments, and we're just like that. You've probably heard about Google experimenting on like what color of blue to use on the homepage. Well, for this, I got asked to implement an experiment for how fast should we scroll the messages. And so I think I did like 100, 200, 300, 400 milliseconds or something like that of transition delay. I don't remember what we landed at, but there was a measurable change in the numbers, as absurd as that sounds. But this is the best scroll rate for smooth scrolling messages. Anyone can see it, though. It's not really a trade secret, but I guess if you're implementing this to yourself, copy it or do your own experiment. But I still feel like it was very silly to experiment on this, but I guess I'm glad we did because it did make some kind of difference. So anyway, after doing all that, are you done? And I'd say the answer is yes. That was most of the issues. We kept debugging it forever. Eventually I left, and I see that people have carried the torch long after I left, but it looked about like this when I left, and I was pretty proud of this. I think it looks really nice. It makes it way easier to follow the messages because they don't just teleport to the top of the screen. And also, here's where I'd like to make a small dig at Twitch. So if you look at a Twitch chat, which I feel is kind of the big competitor for YouTube gaming in particular, their messages just, they appear. And I don't blame them. It's hard to implement smooth scrolling live chat. But every time I see Twitch, every time I see Twitch chat overlaid on something or see overlaid in a YouTube video, I'm like, hey, you didn't have me. You didn't have some guy to implement smooth scrolling. And as far as I know, I mean, it's YouTube, but as far as I know, this is the biggest implementation of a smooth scrolling chat on the internet. And so I'm really proud of it. I think it looks really nice. I hope you think it looks nice. If you don't leave a comment and get out of here. I don't want to hear about it. But if you do think it looks nice, feel free to tell me. But yeah, it was really fun. It took a lot more time than it should have. It created a lot more bugs than it should have. Oh, right. One more notable bug. So I actually got a capture of this because I wasn't sure how long it was going to stay up. I'm going to watch the video and probably insert this as like a B-roll. But if you're watching this live chat and then you go to another tab, then when you come back after a long enough delay, I could never figure out something about JavaScript timing and animation. And so all the messages appear at once, and they smooth scroll for a while. Then they transition to that other regime I was talking about, and they go to like stutter scrolling. Then all the messages have gotten dumped in, a few new ones arrive, and then we go back to smooth scrolling. And this happens every time you change away from the tab. And I wrote tons and tons of debug code to try and figure out what is it. I think it's Chrome's fault, but I'm not sure. But I think it either pauses JavaScript execution, or it pauses the high resolution timer, or the low resolution timer, or it pauses 2 of the 3 or something. I could not figure it out. And so this is better than everything instantly teleporting, but this bug has been here for years and years. I could never fix it. I hope someone would fix it after I left, but it looks like still no one's gotten to it. But it was really difficult because also think about how you trigger this. You're like, oh yeah, this bug that only happens after, I can't remember. It was more than 15 minutes of time, I think. Basically every time it came back from lunch. And that was really frustrating. I would work on this. I'd come back from lunch and I would click on the tab and it would do the scroll. And I was like, God damn it. I got to fix that. And I could never figure out what it was. So maybe someone who knows more about JavaScript animation timing when a tab isn't focused. I don't know who that would be. You might think you know a lot about JavaScript timing and animation, but I bet you haven't screwed with it when the tab isn't focused. Because like if you're writing a game or something like that, you don't think, oh, what if people are away from my game for 30 minutes and then they come back? I got to make sure all the animations play out correctly. I could never figure that out. And hopefully someone will. So you can see, even after all that effort, still a little bit buggy, but I still think it looks beautiful. I'm really proud of it. Anyway, I hope you like it too.